This week on Cinemaholics, we're reviewing the Lego Movie 2, the second part, the long-awaited sequel to the surprise animated 2014 hit.
I definitely was fairly worried going in, like, is this just going to be a huge brand special and like a commercial?
We're also covering some big new releases, including What Men Want, starring Taraji P. Henson. And I had no idea what I was in for here. Cold Pursuit, a black comedy revenge thriller starring Liam Neeson.
There is something about like just how repetitious the violence is.
And High Flying Bird, a sports drama from director Steven Soderbergh and starring Andre Holland and Zazie Beetz. Soderbergh is now making films he knows you're going to see on a smartphone. All that and more is coming up on Cinemaholics. Welcome once again to Cinemaholics. He is a pop culture writer for Cinema Blend. He also reviews films for The Playlist, Cut Print Film, Hey You Guys, and many more, including an actual newspaper. See, I said it this time. It is Will Ashton.
Hi, do you know which newspaper I've written for?
It's like the Pittsburgh Gazette.
Close. You got two of the three words. It's the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
There we go. Okay, I knew I had something Pittsburgh at least. So, and I am the author of the novel Killer Joy, a book about Pixar called The Pixar Theory. I've never written for a newspaper, but I've written about film for Adam Inside a Relevant magazine. And the young folks, I am John Negroni. You can find more episodes of Cinemaholics on adamtickets.com, and you can write into the show anytime. Email us, cinemaholicspodcast@gmail.com. You can support us directly by becoming one of our monthly patrons on patreon.com/cinemaholics. And we now have a Cinemaholics website. Your one-stop shop for all things Cinemaholics is cinemaholics.net. So check that out. You can find all of our episodes, all of our archived episodes. We're going to be adding more content to that, including forums and ways that you can contact us directly, all kinds of good stuff. Check it out, cinemaholics.net. Will Ashton, this is our Season 3 premiere of Cinemaholics, and we are fittingly reviewing the Lego Movie 2, the second part. One of the first movies we ever reviewed was, I know it should be the third part based on what we're doing here, but...
Well, it is technically like the, fourth Lego movie?
Yes, yes. So, and we'll get to that. But yeah, the Lego Movie 2, we reviewed the Lego Batman on the show in our first episode with John Wick Chapter 2, and we'll be reviewing John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum later this year, so it's been a journey, so... The Lego Movie 2 won our patron poll earlier this week. You chose it over Cold Pursuit and What Men Want. We will be talking about both of those films later in the show, as well as High Flying Bird, a new Steven Soderbergh film on Netflix, plus a few other films that I know you watched, Will Ashton. So this is going to be one of those episodes where we have a ton to review. We don't have time for any games, so let's...
I mean, like, how many films did we review last week?
That's true. Well, that was just me spouting off about Sundance films. Yeah. Just stream of consciousness. So definitely a more polished episode this time around, I hope. I haven't really listened back to that episode yet, but I'm a little scared, Will, that because I felt so drained when I was trying to talk about so many different movies. I hope I was able to offer some useful, interesting insights about this.
I think it was good. I liked listening to it. It was fun. I mean, I think personally my favorite part of it was your surprise at me knowing anything about the WWE personally, but I think it was a good episode all around.
All right. Yes, I cannot wait to talk about fighting with my family with you, someone who is a true WWE fan. So,
I mean that's generous, but sure.
All right, Mankind. That was your favorite, right?
That is true. Yes, my favorite wrestler.
See, I remembered. All right, we have a couple of off topics to get to. Will Ashton, you were on another podcast, one that I've been on before. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was kindly invited onto the Bacons and Eggs podcast to discuss The Dark Knight Rises. That episode is now available, and I think it turned out to be a pretty fun ep. We talked about the film in part, but we also went into a lot of tangents related to a number of different things. And I had a lot of fun, and I wanted to make sure to let the listeners know about that. So I hope to be back on that podcast again soon to talk more about whatever they want me to talk about with them.
Yeah, I listened to the episode. The Dark Knight Rises one. I also listened to their Dark Knight episode, and you did a great job, Will, repping Cinemaholics on the East Coast. Really appreciate that. So, also, there is one movie that came out this week that neither of us saw called The Prodigy. It's a new horror film, and I didn't have this one on my radar. Did you hear anything about The Prodigy, Will? I haven't seen any reviews. I don't know if it's worth checking out. I think it has a pretty low Rotten Tomatoes score last I checked.
Yeah, this is one of the characters named Miles?
I don't know.
I think I saw something on Twitter trending about Miles. Or maybe it wasn't even trending, just a hashtag, and I was like, what's this? Like, it was related to a film I knew, and I was like, I don't know what this is. And I clicked on the hashtag and it was to this movie. So that's like the first I've been really hearing anything about this. So they're doing a great job marketing it. I'm sure it's like a big hit.
Yeah. I haven't checked the box office yet. Right after we do this episode, I'm going to do my weekly box office column for Adam Insider, and I have a feeling, last I checked the numbers, Lego Movie 2 was underperforming, and I didn't even see Prodigy in the top 3. So it's looking like this is going to be another kind of low week for the box office, which had me kind of thinking, what's going on? Like, it seems like, with the exception of Glass and The Upside, it's been a bad couple of months for films we thought would do a little bit better. I know Escape Room has done pretty good box office based on its budget, but The Kid Who Would Be King, I mean, if that doesn't perform well in the UK when it rolls out in those markets, I think next month, that movie's going to flop terribly. Last I checked, it hasn't even cracked 20 million at the box office, and that's a $60 million budget.
Yeah, that's a shame. I looked it up. Prodigy opened in 6th place with $6 million, appropriately enough.
Yeah, I have a feeling the studio was projecting it was going to be kind of a weak debut, but that doesn't look like a big budget horror film, so it may be just fine. Now, moving on, because we do have a lot of reviews to get to, we just want to remind everyone once again that our anniversary series is going to be coming out later this month. That is going to be a milestone series where we tackle films that are reaching a big milestone. I don't remember which one. We haven't really settled on our February film yet, Will Ashton. So I have a feeling we might have to send out another poll to our patrons.
Yeah. Do we have options at least?
We do. I don't have them in front of me, so I don't want to misspeak. So just keep your eyes out. If you're a patron or you're about to become a patron, keep your eye out for that poll. We want your help in deciding which of these milestones we're going to celebrate on the show. It's going to be a special bonus episode, and we have a couple of ideas who we want to come on to that episode and talk about these movies with us, people who really know their stuff. So that should be pretty fun. But with that, Will Ashton, let's just get into our main review this week, which is the Lego Movie 2, the second part. I really love, that's one of my favorite sequel titles in a little while. I like the cleverness there. So this is it's great. This is a direct follow-up to the Lego Movie from Warner Brothers / Warner Animation Group in 2014. Now, we've seen 2 other Lego movies come out since that first one. They've both been spin-offs. We kind of alluded earlier. One of them was the Lego Batman movie, which, fun fact, was the first film we ever reviewed on Cinemaholics. And then they also came out with the Lego Ninjago movie later that same year. Now, I know I didn't even watch that one. Will Ashton, did you see Lego Ninjago?
I did. I saw it on DVD. It's pretty good. I liked it a little more than most critics, I think, because I guess by that point, it was like 2 Lego movies in about like 6 months span of time.
Right, yeah.
So I think I saw it like maybe a couple months after that. So it might have been like a year after Lego Batman. So maybe I was a little more receptive to it. And I also have a big appreciation for martial arts movies. So I think I like that one about the same, if not maybe more than Lego Batman.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. And I know both you and I definitely liked the Lego movie. I didn't love it. Did you like it or love it?
Lego Batman?
The first Lego.
Oh, Lego movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, really like the Lego movie. That's that holds up as well. I was rewatching it this week, and I think it's quite good.
I've only seen it the once. I have a feeling I probably would like it a second time. I wasn't as enchanted with it in theaters when it came out, but I know people really love that film, and I can definitely see why. Now, I think I disliked Lego Batman a bit more than most people did, including you, but that film, too, was pretty well received. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I disliked it. I think I didn't like it nearly as much as everyone else. I really liked the first 15 minutes, and then I was kind of checked out for the rest.
No, actually, I was saying, like, I think I agree with you. Like, I was about the same, so I felt like it was like a cute concept that I think as a feature-length film kind of overstayed its welcome. Like, I remember feeling exhausted by it in a way that I didn't feel exhausted watching the other Lego movies, including this one. So I think it's fine. I just don't get the people who are like, it's basically on par with the Lego movie. I'm like, that's bold and audacious thing to say, and I don't agree with it.
Yeah, I definitely can't get on that same train. Now, unlike Lego Batman and Lego Ninjago, the Lego Movie 2 is a true sequel to the first film, which was directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller. They're co-writers this time around with Matt Fogel, and the director in this new film is Mike Mitchell, who most recently did Trolls, but he also did Sky High, which is a guilty pleasure of mine. and Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, which I have a feeling...
Not that one.
I have a feeling, yeah, definitely need to clarify. I have a feeling Deuce Bigelow is some people's guilty pleasures. And Shrek Forever After, which, Will, I know you have a pretty authoritative opinion on, I'm sure.
Really? That's actually the one I feel like most indifferent about in the Shrek cinematic universe, which is that I say cinematic universe because there's Puss in Boots, so I can qualify as such.
Yeah.
I feel like it's okay. Like, it's not a bad ending. It's certainly a better ending than Shrek the Third. But I just felt like I just remember thinking at that time, like, you kind of overdid this. Like, it's too little, too late. Like, it's just an okay movie that doesn't really have the same weight as the first two films.
All right. Well, then, moving on from the Shrek portion of this review, the Lego Movie 2 continues the adventures of the Master Builders from the first film. They include Emmett, once again voiced by Chris Pratt, Lucy, who is played by Elizabeth Banks, and of course, Lego Batman, voiced by Will Arnett, who has a bigger role in this film than I anticipated. The sequel takes place 5 years after the event of the first, again, a bigger gap than I anticipated, and Bricksburg has been renamed Apocalypseburg. So the film sort of starts out with a Mad Max Fury Road post-apocalyptic motif and goes from there. We do have a clip from the movie here to set the scene. We see a new villain character named General Mayhem, voiced by Stephanie Beatriz from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She has invaded Apocalypseburg and has demanded our heroes bring forth their fiercest warrior. Here's the clip.
Bring me your fiercest leader.
Yeah, that's me. This guy coming through. I'm the leader of...
You! I don't think so.
When everyone became the special, didn't we all become leaders?
I sense no leadership qualities from you. My readout confirms you to be soft, fragile, and a less than worthy opponent.
Hey, you watch what you say about Emmett. He saved the universe a few years back.
This guy was a fierce warrior.
Okay, well, technically I did the warrior stuff, but...
So you fought, and master built, and kicked butt, and then the hapless male was the leader.
Well, you know, he was a symbol for that we all have ideas.
But you did all the work.
Well, hey, Emmett is the sweetest, most optimistic guy you could ever meet. And I know those qualities are not useful anymore, and that Emmett isn't changing with the times and lacks a killer instinct and in general just isn't tough enough.
Not tough enough?
Yeah, but this guy is the special. Well, at least he was.
All right, that is from the Lego Movie 2. The second part, it's getting rave reviews from critics, and I saw this a few weeks back. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I actually find it a bit more interesting and lasting than the first film, which I have a feeling I'm a minority opinion on, but I will say it's definitely not quite as funny as the first film, in my opinion, and at least in some parts. But Will, where do you stand on this new film? How do you think it compares to the first?
Yeah, I mean, like I was saying earlier, I really have a special place in my heart for that first Lego movie, because I don't know if I was quite as cynical about it as some other people were, but I definitely was fairly worried going in, like, is this just going to be a huge brand special, and, you know, like, is it just going to be like a commercial for 90 minutes I have to pay to see? And I would say, to the credit of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they turned something that could have been just obnoxious and loathsome into something that was really sincere and sweet and creative. And I think the movie is, I don't know if it's quite on the same level as Toy Story 1 or even the Toy Story movies in general, but I do think it reaches their heights way more than I anticipated. And I think that is something that basically continues with the sequel. I don't know if I'm quite as high on the film as you are. I think having the surprise factor not be in this sequel, I think ultimately hurts it more than I would have liked. And I do think that having had 4 Lego movies in this universe kind of takes the steam out of it a little bit, because I think the, like, kind of winking, self-aware sense of humor kind of loses its charm maybe after 4 times. But I will say, I think the sequel has a lot to like. I enjoyed all the new characters. I think it's pretty great that it's also a musical. Was something I was not anticipating. I think that was something I ultimately enjoyed. And I thought the voice acting was good. I especially think, a lot of people give Chris Pratt flack, and I think for reasons justified and not. But I think his voice acting in these movies is really good. I think it's some of his best work, and I think that's especially true in this one, as he plays 2 different characters. Emmett Brickowski, I think that's the last name of his main character, right? Bukowski.
Sounds right. Yeah, I don't think they even said it in this new film.
Yeah, and then who's the new character? I can't remember his name off the top of my.
Oh, it's the most memorable name of 2019, Rex Dangervest.
Dangervest, that's it. I knew it was something with a vest. So, this character, I thought, I mean, to his credit, like, I thought it was Kurt Russell at first. And I was like, is this a Guardians 2 reunion?
Yeah, well, because he's definitely a send-up of the Snake character, right? From the 80s.
Yeah, it's like Snake. It's Snake and Jack Burton. It's like a mix of the two.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's like basically like 80s Kurt Russell, like molded into like one interpretation with a little bit of like John Wayne thrown in there at times. That character is a lot of fun. As far as the performance, I think you can tell that Chris Pratt's having a lot of fun playing that part.
Yeah, we should say, I mean, there's a real life charm to the relationship between Chris Pratt and Kurt Russell, ever since they did Guardians 2 together. You do kind of get the sense that Chris Pratt, Kurt Russell's kind of like a mentor figure to him in real life. So that extra factor, it's sweet.
It's a loving impersonation, I think. And I was wondering, because I don't know how far along or how far ahead they record dialogue for like animated movies, but do you think they were doing that line reading during filming of Guardians 2 or like shortly before or thereafter?
No, definitely not, because I mean, Guardians 2 was recording in probably 2016. And this movie, they were probably wrapping up production in like either the very end of 2017, so way after Guardians 2 came out, or beginning of 2018, if not later.
So it's safe to say that his time on Guardians 2 probably informed this performance of Rex, which I think makes sense. I think that's what I think makes it stand out, because it could have been, grating if it was just an impersonation, but I think having that loving factor and also the writing that stands out makes it work. But yeah, overall, I like the film, but I would say you were saying it's going to stand the test of time more than the first one or something like that?
No, I wouldn't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's more lasting for me than the first one. Like something about the message clicked with me a little bit more than the Lord President business plot in the first film, which I don't think a lot of people will be on the same page on. But for whatever reason, that didn't really hit me. But what they did in this film hit me more for some reason. So I don't know why. Maybe because I do have a sister.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I think this one, the only thing I can think that's going to really hurt this movie is that I think it's just going to be forgettable compared to the first one. In my opinion, I just don't think it has that same memorable quality to it. Maybe it's that surprise factor. I don't know. But I do think the first movie...
I could definitely see that happening.
But I think that first movie, I think the message is a little more dense than what you're implying. I think it's more about like individuality and like being... like the fear of being ubiquitous and like even like the kind of cold nature of commercialism, which is something I was not anticipating in a movie sponsored at least in part by Lego. So I think there's a lot going on in that first movie. I think there's a lot going on in this movie too. I would say, if anything, I'm kind of surprised that this movie basically stole Ralph Breaks the Internet's thunder and basically just did its message better 2 months later.
I completely agree with that. Yeah,
right.
Ralph Breaks the Internet didn't quite work for me, and I don't even think I thought about Ralph Breaks the Internet until after this movie wrapped up and it started to click with me. Like, oh, they're kind of doing the same thing, both these films.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not the same exact thing, but it's like pretty similar, and it's similar enough in a short amount of time in a similar genre where it's just like. Yeah, I kind of wish, like, especially if this had come out before Ralph Breaks the Internet, I think I might have been even more critical of Ralph Breaks the Internet. And I think I've grown more sour to that film since we talked about it, though I still think it's okay. But yeah, I'd say this movie, by and large, as far as animated sequels are concerned, is a pretty darn good one.
Yes. I don't think either of us will say it is awesome, but I do think it is nice. It's a good film. And I think the things about this one that I like the most are, like you were mentioning, the character arc of Emmett and his entire dynamic with Rex Dangervest, I think, was different and interesting for me. There was something to that where it's sort of tracking Chris Pratt's acting career. I mean, this movie gets as meta as it gets, and as meta as it gets. And I really like that because, when you think about it, Lego Movie was one of the first sort of modern meta films to really be born out of the Community era, in the sense that it was, this movie came out before Deadpool, right? It came out before movies started getting more and more self-aware. And that was a great surprise factor with that film, not just the real life, plot twist revelation toward the end of the Lego Movie, but also this idea of like spoofing lots of characters from Warner Brothers and DC and all of that. And in this film, what they're doing is they're getting more meta about the voice actors. And I like that. I like that decision. I think that it leads to some genuinely heartfelt moments, especially considering Chris Pratt's career and how it's changed over the years. You know, I remember when Jurassic World was coming out, he was going through a lot of intense stuff. And I mean, we don't have to get into his personal life or anything, but obviously it's been kind of a rough 2 years for him. I think he's about to get married to a new person and all this stuff.
Yeah, Catherine Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. And, you know, all of that put aside, right? I think that Chris Pratt's somebody who has been in the spotlight for a few years, and Hollywood can be a devastating, vicious place. And there was just something kind of nice about seeing him in this role again, you know, being Emmett again. And because it has been 5 years since the first Lego movie. And I like that they put this off, because I know they originally were going to do the sequel a lot earlier than this. They were going to do it, I think, in 2017. And instead they pushed it so that they could do Lego Batman and Lego Ninjago. And I'm glad they did, because I think that gap of time helped this story a lot more than it definitely would have if it had just been 3 years, right? That's just my opinion. And I also like what Tiffany Haddish is doing in here as this sort of this quasi-villain character and the Sistar system. Once again, this film has so many puns and things like that that are fun. You know, I think that this is a very inoffensive, harmless movie. I like that. I wasn't on board with where they were going with Lego Batman until they sort of paired him with the Queen character, and there are some generally great moments. You mentioned it was a musical, and I don't love the music in this at all, honestly, but I did find the concepts of them fun. Like the one that's like, this song will get stuck in your head, and I'm not into Gotham, guys. You know, there's always good writing, even if the music itself doesn't work for you. So yeah, I'm a fan of this one. I think that it's good for great for kids, good for adults. It's not the sort of, to what you're saying, like Toy Story 2 level of like, wow, you know, the sequels just came out of nowhere and it managed to capture lightning in a bottle twice. I know I'm mixing up my metaphors, but it does a serviceable job. You can tell that Phil Lord and Chris Miller worked on this one. I worry a little bit about how those two filmmakers are maybe in some ways going back to the same bag of tricks here and there. I don't know if that's fair to say. It just feels like their style of comedy, you know, we didn't really get to see it fully realized in Solo: A Star Wars Story. But I wonder, Will, I mean, what do you think is next for these guys? Do you think that they've maybe sort of lost it? Or do you think that because they are just screenwriters, that lack of control, you can sort of excuse maybe this one not being quite the comedic, you know, wonder bar that the first Lego movie was?
Well, I don't think they've lost it by any means. I think, if anything, they're at a career triumph right now with this and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. But I do think. Well, for one, I don't want to give them too much credit for both those films, because I do think, you know, like they weren't the directors, like they were just involved as producers, and then for this film they were writing it, and then Phil Lord wrote Spider-Verse. But I do think, as far as their future, I was talking about this with Matt yesterday. I don't quite know what's next for them. I don't know if they're going to get back into directing soon, because I feel like they probably were burnt by the Solo experience, and I can understand if they were kind of concerned about, you know, like getting involved with something that big again. They might do something smaller, maybe something that they can have a little more control on. I don't know what's next for them. I mean, it could be something similar to this, like another sequel. Yeah. I mean, they might just put their eggs back into Spider-Verse and like work on the sequels and spin-offs that are coming into that.
Yeah,
but I really
just
don't know
do any
sure.
film with Sony, right? They could do all kinds of things with them. They have all kinds of characters in their arsenal.
I mean, it would be weird to go to Sony for stability at this point, but I mean, I guess that's yeah. But no, yeah, I just wish the best no matter what happens for them. I mean, I think they are genuinely talented. I think they're really smart, thoughtful filmmakers who really, I think, put as much as they can into each film with their name on it. So, I mean, that's the thing about Solo, right? Is that, like, I don't think how that went down is by any means good. Like, I find that it was very much a distressing, sad situation for basically everyone involved. But at the same time, if they hadn't been let go from that film, I don't think Spider-Verse and Lego Movie 2 would be what they are. I mean, I think their influence was found in each. I mean, that's not to say either of them would be bad. I think Spider-Verse certainly would still be good. And I think this would probably be fine, but I do think having each of them involved probably did help in some way or another. So there's
no way we can know for sure,
right? Yeah, for sure. So I mean, I'm glad that they are kind of picking themselves back up again, and I only wish them the best from here.
Same here. Yeah. Back to Lego Movie 2, though, there are some things where, I still don't fully understand the appeal of some of the other characters. I know, Alison Brie, Charlie Day, Nick Offerman, they all do characters in this one as well. I know, Will Ferrell does Word Business again for like a quick scene.
Yeah.
None of that really worked for me much. There is a surprise cameo in the real life world that we won't give away that I did find very funny, and I loved seeing Brooklyn Prince from the Florida Project again. That was when I realized it was her. I had no idea she was in this. That was lovely to see.
I like to think that is Mooney.
That's right.
She's okay now.
She's okay.
I want to give Florida Project a happy ending in my mind.
Yeah.
Even though it did kind of have a happy ending in some respects.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a can of worms for another day.
Yeah. Well, no, I meant you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, not really, but okay, we'll move on. Yeah, so
I don't want to spoil the Florida Project, so go ahead.
Right. So yeah, I still don't really like a lot of these other characters in the film, to be totally honest. Like, they just don't stick out much to me, and this movie is pretty messy, around the edges. There's a lot of really weird plot turns that happen here that I was kind of, okay, what's going on? And there's a lull in the middle that had me kind of checking my watch a little bit, but it does come together by the end. And I think this one is a pretty worthwhile experience. It's great animation. I think it's obviously improved quite a bit in the last 5 years. Like, the detail on these actual Lego characters is so good. And it's just a seamless animation style, especially when they interwove it with the real world scenes, right? And I feel like it never takes you out of the movie, which is a huge danger, right? Is if you keep getting too meta, it starts to be kind of a cumbersome experience, but it wasn't for me. I think that this is a wonderfully animated film with a lot of humor, some smart writing, and I think it's good. I would give it a B. What about you?
Yeah, I'm basically in line with that. I gave it a B as well. I think it's a solid sequel, and I enjoyed my time with it, but yeah, by no means does it reach the same heights as the first movie in my view.
All right. And we have a couple of listener reviews. We asked you on Twitter to let us know what you think of the Lego Movie 2, the second part. Just a couple to get to here. First, from Emily. Emily said, "Nothing about this is awesome." So sad to hear that. And then Sam Weiss said, "It was funny and well made after the first 20 minutes. I enjoyed watching it a lot and found the fact that it made fun of itself and a lot of movie cliches hilarious. The duet with Batman was amazing, had a good theme. I genuinely had a great time watching it." All right, so this review is from Zoe Midwinter. Zoe said, "Really enjoyable. Loved the one-liners and quips. Made me want to go and buy a Lego Batman with fur cape and wish Lego were considering adding lights to their ranges." And then Marissa said, "It was really fun. The jokes were thought out. All of the songs were hilarious. I thought that making it more of a musical played well on how the songs fit in the first movie. The movie adding the sister and Maya Rudolph helped the story grow too." So I guess, well, yeah, your musical comment did not go, wasted. I think some people would agree with it.
I mean, I would go so far as to say the musical numbers are more memorable in this than they were in Mary Poppins Returns.
But then you would be saying something incorrect. All right, so this one is from our friend Matt Serafini. He's been on the show. Matt said,
I know that guy.
Yeah, you do know him. You were just, yeah. So Matt said, "Not quite as quick or as funny as the first." I would agree with that. "But it had so much heart, kind of a reverse Lego Batman in that regard. Second act dragged a little, but the third act was so strong to made up for it. Overall, really enjoyed it." So it sounds like Matt and I are right on the same page. And then last, Blake Hodges said, "Fun laughs, cute moments, and above average plot. Lego Movie 2, the second part, does enough with its pros to make you forgive its cons of bad music numbers and shallow emotional depth. Like most sequels, it can't hold the enjoyment value of the first, but you'll have a smile." Thank you for writing in your listener reviews. With that, let's move on to another film. Now, I saw What Men Want, and Will, I know you really had big plans to see this one, and it just couldn't squeeze it in, right?
I got my IMAX tickets, I got my big box of popcorn, and I was counting the days for this one.
Well, I think I think maybe it's not as I think the Rotten Tomatoes score here is a bit low. Maybe it's a 48%. 48% of critics liked it, and I definitely liked this one more than another film that was wide release that we'll talk about in a little bit. But anyway, What Women Want is a new high-concept studio comedy from Paramount, starring Taraji P. Henson. It was directed by Adam Shankman, who has directed some movies that I really like, including Hairspray, Walk to Remember, and The Pacifier, as well as some movies I am not a big fan of, including Bedtime Stories, that Adam Sandler movie, The Wedding Planner, not Singer, and Cheaper by the Dozen 2. So this is a loose remake of What Women Want, the Mel Gibson comedy where he can read the minds. Well, yeah, because it doesn't take place in the same universe. I wasn't
sure. That's why I didn't know.
I would quantify it as a remake, yeah. But if you don't remember, that What Women Want came out around 2000 and stars Mel Gibson. And in that movie, he can read the minds of women and only women. So similar to that film, Taraji P. Henson plays Allie, a sports agent who feels boxed out of her workplace's boys' club. So she uses her newfound ability to read men's minds in order to get ahead in her career and in her relationships. Here's a clip from the film, What Men Want. You're going to hear Taraji P. Henson with her assistant kind of figuring out that she has this new power.
I feel weird after last night.
Yeah, that's what happens when tequila meets desperation.
Okay, stop doing that.
Stop doing what?
Talking without moving your mouth and saying things you shouldn't be saying to your boss.
I swear on my life I would never say anything disrespectful or inappropriate to you ever. Which is more than I can say for you.
Right there. You just did it. You said more than I can say for you. I heard you say it.
But I didn't say it. Holy crap. Can you hear my inner thoughts?
I can hear your inner thoughts. I'm screaming. Stop doing that.
All right, that is from the new movie, What Men Want. This is a hard R film, and that scene actually has way dirtier language in it. It's been, of course, edited and redubbed to basically be more PG-13, but this is a hard R film, which I was surprised by, Will Ashton. I had no idea what I was in for here. I thought that this was going to be kind of a PG-13. You know, I don't think What Women Want was all that edgy in 2000. I mean, I remember some of that film, but I don't know. I can't get into the language, or it's been 18, 19 years now. Now, What Men Want, I think this is a fun premise. It's a wish fulfillment premise. When you're watching it, the fun, the joys, and putting yourself into the shoes of this character and wondering what you would do with these powers, right? We all sort of wish we could have an advantage over other people in all of our pursuits, whether they be personal, professional. But mind reading, which we've learned from a lot of other movies, can be a lot more trouble than it's worth. But that makes it great fodder for comedy and commentary. Now, I will say the comedy in What Men Want did not grab me in the slightest. I don't think I laughed audibly one single time. And I only found a few of the gags amusing, to be totally honest. And anecdotally, my theater was mostly muted during this entire experience, save for a few bombastic scenes featuring Erykah Badu as this drug-peddling psychic named Sister, who ambiguously leads Allie to getting her powers in the first place. But despite me not having a great time with the comedy here, I have to say I was entertained throughout this whole movie. Weirdly enough, I was sober, I will say. And I think I was entertained in the same way I usually am in romantic comedies that don't make me laugh much, where I don't really love the comedy. And it's mainly because Taraji P. Henson is so good at playing characters you want to root for scene to scene. And yet she's still flawed. She has lessons to learn. And one of those lessons is a surprisingly touching one about both men and women wanting to be respected and appreciated in ways that I think the original Mel Gibson film definitely fumbled on. If you're intrigued by the trailer for What Men Want, if you're in the mood for a breezy, enjoyable romantic comedy with some goofy characters, I think this one will suit you fine. I don't think it's offensively bad. Now, I have seen a lot of reviews come out where people have really hated on this film. And, I'm not saying it's a surefire win. I would give it a B-, where I think most people going into it, knowing that they're getting an R-rated comedy that skews romantic, and they kind of like this premise and they just want to kill time, I think they're going to like this one fun. And I could see some people really enjoying this film and finding the comedy good. It's definitely better than it has probably a right to be based on some of its pre-existing, lore, I guess, if you can even call it that. So What Men Want, I think it's a decent flick. Definitely not one that you need to rush out and go see unless you're just in the mood for that kind of film. And I think some people might be surprised by some of its more interesting dialogue choices toward the end. I think there are some interesting scenes and, in between all of the very cliche tropes that you have to sort of sit through. So I won't say, well, Ashton, that you need to go check this one out anytime soon, but I'm definitely glad that I saw it. I had a fun time with it.
Yeah, I mean, I was knocking it, but I do really like Taraji P. Henson. I think she's very versatile, and I do think she is a great lead. So I want to give the movie the benefit of the doubt for her, although I will say that the first trailer I saw for this was very bad. But the second one I saw, like the Red Band one, was actually okay. So, I don't know, maybe I'll agree with you if I check it out.
Yeah, I have a feeling some people will enjoy it more than they expect. I think your expectations are a big one with what men want. If you go into it sort of just expecting a dumb comedy with, little moments, I guess, if you can call them that, then that is definitely this kind of film. And it's out right now. So you have options at the theater. A lot of films came out. And this next one we're going to get to is definitely a tricky one to parse. It's called Cold Pursuit. Stars Liam Neeson, and it's been making headlines for reasons that are outside of what the film technically is, and that's because Liam Neeson came out and said some things that, he was trying to relate to the revenge in this film. But before we even get to any sort of things like that, Will Ashton, what is Cold Pursuit about, and who's in it?
Well, like you said, it's Liam Neeson's new action revenge film, and I believe it's a remake of a Norwegian film that came out a couple years ago.
It is, and it has the same director.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the title of the original was, because, it's In Order of Disappearance.
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed at the end of the credits. I don't know if you stuck around for those, but instead of just listing the actors, like, they disappear according to when they die in the film. I thought that was fun. But yeah, so the film itself is it's based on basically Mr. Plow. He is just going, like, Liam Neeson's character is a guy named Nelson Coxman who kind of just lives his life as a snow driver.
I think in the original his name is Nels Dickman, and so they kind of just carried that over, yeah.
How about that? So yeah, he lives in the Rocky Mountains, I think. I don't know if they ever say that.
In Kehoe, which is outside of Denver,
yeah, they say, yeah, he's in Kehoe in Denver, yes.
So like a ski town.
Right. He lives with his wife, played by Laura Dern, and quite a disservice. I feel like they could have done way more with Laura Dern than they ultimately do.
She's not in this film much. Yeah, she sort of disappears and is never really mentioned much again.
Yeah, poor girl. But anyway, yeah, he is basically a veteran at his field, I guess, and he gets the Citizen of the Year award in the small town, but he is met with tragedy when it's revealed that his son has passed away. They claim that it was a heroin overdose, though he says at many points, my son was not a druggie. So he definitely doubts that verdict. But when he's at a moment of desperation, when he's going to commit suicide, he discovers that there might be a sinister reason for his son's death. And he kind of goes down this trail of deceit from local gangsters and a couple other people. And it gets quite bloody from there. So that's a loose synopsis of the film.
All right. We do have a clip from the movie. This is a scene between Liam Neeson's character and his brother, another Coxman, kind of discussing what's going to come next for these characters.
Fellow Coxman.
Kyle, he got mixed up with some clown by the name of Dante, and they stole a kilo of coke from Viking.
Who's Viking?
Drug dealer, a big one. Viking's a whole different breed. He likes hurting people.
Gonna kill him, Rock.
Sure you are. What makes you think you can kill a man?
I've killed 3 of his guys.
What did you do with the bodies?
Wrapped them in chicken wire, threw them on the gorge.
Where'd you learn that?
I read it in a crime novel.
All right, that is from Cold Pursuit. I didn't like this movie, Will. I didn't like it at all. I really was mostly frustrated by it. You know, the humor didn't work for me. The tone didn't work for me. What this movie was about didn't work for me. The action nothing really worked for me in this one. Liam Neeson's performance didn't work for me. I definitely am not a fan. What about you?
So I just saw this like a couple hours ago, and I'm still kind of figuring out where I am on the film because I really just don't know. But I think I like it more than you do for sure. I do think some of it does work really well. I actually was a big fan of the comedy. Not to say it's like uproarious, but I mean, once you get past the beginning, which is pretty rough, like the first 20 minutes of this, it feels confused, where like some jokes like I think could be funny, but like the way they're sparsed into the film feels odd. Like when they're in the corner room and like the like tables like slowly going up and it's like very exaggerated. It's like a comedic scene, but it feels out of place in that moment. But I will say once the actual like crime angle gets into it, I was getting into it more. There is something about like just how repetitious the violence is that feels fairly good in its comedic approach. Like I just think like he just does basically the same thing over and over again. Like he just like punches a guy and then shoots him and then like wraps their body up and throws him into the river. And there's something I did find amusing, but I will say my sense of humor is much darker, I think, than yours. So I think I appreciate that angle. And I think that added some spice to what would have been an otherwise basically like a direct-to-DVD thriller revenge tale. I will say that's spice, and that's not really substance, I think, especially for this type of film. Because I don't think the comedy is really adding too much commentary. I mean, there's like mild commentary on like how the gangsters like have like this sort of like civilized mentality, but it's like basically false. Like they just only want what's best for them, but they pretend to be people of like principle. And I don't know, I mean, there's something in here. I would be very curious to see the original film, especially given that it's the same director, and I feel like there's something, I don't know if it's just the edit of the film that doesn't quite come together, because it feels very messy. Like there's like 3 or 4 different storylines going on at once. And like there's also one with Emmy Rossum where she's like basically doing her best impression of Frances McDormand from Fargo.
This movie like, desperately wants to be a Coen Brothers movie for sure.
Yeah, I was gonna make that joke earlier. This is the weirdest season of Fargo yet.
You can't help but make that connection. It's the writing is mimicking for sure what the Coens do.
Right. But I found like the humor worked better in here than say like 3 Billboards, where like it was trying to do the same thing, and I felt like that movie was like,
I could not disagree more.
But I mean, I think 3 Billboards is a better film, but I think the comedy works better in here. But I think it's the dry approach. Just it fits me better. I think that I tend to like that more than like. Whereas that film, it felt way more of an impersonation of the Coens. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I really don't honestly know where I stand on it, because I don't dislike it, but I don't think it's a good film. Like I think ultimately it comes together in a very messy hodgepodge sort of way. And I found that kind of odd, considering that this is a guy who's like second time making this film. So I don't know what happened between the first 2 times, or the first time and this one. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know where I am on this, John.
Yeah, you get the sense that it's just not a story that can be easily adapted, to our sort of, our culture, I guess.
Yeah, it's very Norwegian.
Yeah, the way that he's
approach.
Right, with like the slapstick dark humor, which, I'm a fan of too. I definitely like dark humor. It's not that I'm less of a fan of it than you. I just think that, there's something about the way that it's executed here that just put a really bad taste in my mouth. And I think a lot of it is the timing in this movie is just off. Like everything about this movie felt very off to me.
That's what I meant by the editing. I think editing is such a crucial part of comedy, especially dark comedy. And if you don't quite nail that right, because there's stuff in here I think that is actually really funny that I think wasn't quite made as funny as it could have been.
Yeah, there are things in here that should be funny.
Right, that's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and then but the result of it is, instead of me laughing or kind of getting on this movie's wavelength, instead I'm like, don't joke about that. I don't want you to joke about that. Like I'm having the wrong impressions, and it's hypocritical, right? But the movie's job is for me to sort of put aside my hangups and laugh with it, over something as atrocious as murder. And instead, I'm just frustrated this entire movie with everything that's going on. I think that it does get really messy with, certain characters. Like Liam Neeson's character disappears for a big portion of this movie. I think that the writing for the cop characters, you mentioned Emmy Rossum, that just nothing really comes of that in any sort of satisfying way. And it just doesn't, you don't understand why it's in there. And, maybe this film's one silver lining for me is that I appreciate the Coens a little bit more, and I already really love their writing style. I think they're just much better at putting in dark humor into the world of criminals and getting you to sort of laugh at the absurdity of human sin in a way that you don't feel like uncomfortable sort of relishing in the schadenfreude of people's misfortunes because they're criminals. And in this movie, I wasn't really feeling it. There weren't any sort of tugs in this movie that got me to invest. I think that Liam Neeson has this subplot with one of the younger characters that just defies all logic in a way that could have worked. It really could have. You can sort of see like, you can write this in a way where it's actually touching and sweet and yet also super messed up, but in a way that you sort of believe that it could happen. And here I couldn't believe it. I couldn't get into this one. And I'm sad to say that because I was looking forward to a Liam Neeson movie that sort of goes back to, the days of Taken, right? When he was definitely on his way back and you could tell that he was coming out with material that was, like you were saying, it had a little bit more spice than something that would just be VOD. But I'm glad you liked it a little bit more than I did. What was your final grade?
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to that one point you're making, I don't know if this movie was super edited down or if they're missing stuff, because I think that what you're talking about with the kid, I think that would have maybe worked if they had developed the relationship between Liam Neeson and his son. But we don't really know anything about their relationship other than they're kind of distant and they went hunting sometimes. And that's really all we really know about. He only has one scene with his family. So maybe if there was something to that, it could have worked. But they spend, like you said, so much time on the gangster subplot and then some time on the cop thing, which really doesn't ultimately add up too much, other than that they're just on the case, but they don't really do anything to intercept it. So I don't know why they spend so much time on that. Maybe
it's a weird mishmash of the gangster stuff does feel more Scorsese than I was anticipating, but meshed in with this Coen brothers sort of underworld plot.
Yeah, so I think if there should be a more focused, narrow film in here, and I think they felt some weird need to make it more convoluted than ultimately needed to be. So I think if I had to give it a grade, I'll give it a high C+, just because I didn't hate the experience of watching it. I just kind of wish it came together in a more satisfying way. But yeah, I can't have the same strong negative feelings that you do towards the material. Yeah,
I'm a low C. I'm not. I was pretty bored throughout the whole thing, but I can see at least what they were going for. It's not the worst thing you're going to see, probably in theaters right now, maybe. But yeah, it's definitely something that I don't think is worth the time and effort, to be totally honest, especially in a theater. Right, this is definitely not a film that was enhanced whatsoever by me seeing it at the movies. I guess this kind of was an airplane sort of film with characters I barely cared about, and if at all.
I mean, I don't know. My experience got pretty weird at the theater, and I don't think I would have had that at home, where a guy came in 90 minutes into the film and was yelling swear words about what was going on, as if he couldn't piece together the movie because he came in 2/3 of the way in.
Yeah, I had very disruptive, I went into this theater, I sat down alone in the seat that I always like to sit in. Mm-hmm. And what happened, this never happens, but people sat right next to me, even though it wasn't a crowded theater. It wasn't a busy.
The Jim Gep.
Yeah, it's just that.
Zach Galifianakis bit.
Yes. So these two women came and sat next to me, and they were talking throughout most of the movie. I had to tell them to be quiet multiple times. And then the guy to my right, again, no reason why he had to sit there. They could have easily sat a seat across. But he took out his food and he was checking out his phone. He was eating this really smelly food from home. And I'm just sitting there trying to figure out how to get out of the situation. I just had to sit through it the whole time. So maybe that plays part of a little part into why this movie was kind of a miserable experience for me.
That's a shame.
Yeah, but what are you gonna do? So that's Cold Pursuit. I'm a C. You're a C, high C plus, and yeah, I guess this one, if you're interested in the trailer, it might work for you. I definitely don't recommend it. But would you say that you recommend this to fans of Liam Neeson in general?
Sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I would put this above like the Taken movies, but I would put it below. I mean, certainly would put it below like The Grey and We'll Walk 'Em on the Tombstones. I'd say it's like somewhere along the lines of like, what was it, The Commuter that came out?
Yeah, it's probably around that territory.
Yeah.
Another C movie, not just a name.
Yeah. Was that the C Train in the movie? I forget. But
I was just thinking C for Commuter, but yeah.
Right. No, I know what you're trying to do, but
I do disagree though. I think that Taken is much better than this film. The first one.
I think Taken has one great scene that people really like, and then the rest of it is just a bland, kind of serviceable vigilante movie that came out.
Couldn't disagree
in
more.
January. Anyway, that's a whole other topic,
that is a tight film with thrilling moments and a really great scene, as you said.
Yeah, it has a great scene. We can agree on that. I do think its performance in that is good, but yeah, I would say definitely it's not The Grey for sure. I think that's probably the best of these revenge vigilante movies he has done.
That one was just like a survival film, though, wasn't it?
What's that?
Wasn't The Grey just really more about survival?
In a sense. Did you not see The Grey?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you should check out The Grey, man. It's awesome.
I don't know. I heard that he doesn't really fight wolves much, so I kind of was talked down from seeing that.
Well, that's a really basic way of looking at the film, but sure. I mean, I guess that was a big part of the marketing, so I can't say you will appreciate it in full then, I guess.
I too was bamboozled and led astray, so... All right.
Like Ja Rule, I guess, going into the Fry Festival, yes.
That's Cold Pursuit. Now, we would be doing this. We would be doing this film a bit of a disservice if we didn't at least mention that there is a lot of controversy, of course, with Liam Neeson, who, for whatever reason, during the press tour for this film, was talking about one time that he, I think a family member of his was...
I think a friend, I think he said.
So somebody very close to him was assaulted, raped, and all he knew was that it was someone who was black. And then he went out with a baseball bat looking to pick a fight so he could, quote, kill a black person. So he was talking about this during a press tour. And this has really muddled this film because rightfully so. A lot of people have been like, what in the world? Like, this was apparently decades ago. He never really told anybody. I think he said that he sought help afterward. But
he did say, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, very strange choice. And I think, this is one of those things where he's kind of, we were talking about this before the show, but Trevor Noah had a really good response to this where, he kind of brought up that like he kept adding, problems to this where it didn't need to have problems because there's a way to sort of talk about this and talk about something that you regret and that you're ashamed of, which he says in a way that's helpful, but instead he sort of uses it to add whatever he thinks is insight to a movie about revenge. I don't really have much. I don't have much commentary really to put on this. I don't think you do either, but it is something that I think is worth knowing before you go into this movie. It didn't paint my reading of the film. I didn't go into this film ready to hate on it, right, because of all of this. But at the same time, it is a weird context to view Liam Neeson's films in, that he's done all these revenge films and this movie, one that's pretty racially messed up with how this film treats Native Americans. It's been a rough weekend, and I'm a bit annoyed in general with the world right now. Yeah. I mean, we have the president joking about the Trail of Tears, Native American genocide.
And I mean, it was also poor timing with it being Black History Month.
Black History Month, yeah. And I say all of this not to make political points, but just to say it's hard to enjoy movies when all of this is going on. If this doesn't bother you, I'm definitely not a fan of that, but I can't help but feel really bothered by it. It does inhibit me from wanting to go see any movie at the moment, especially one that's you're supposed to take seriously. So I just wanted to mention that as I was watching What Men Want, I just wanted that kind of movie where it wasn't, mired in lots of controversy and ultimately things that I just thought, okay, I just need to watch a film that is lighter, I guess, but I don't know. I just wanted to share that because it did really make it difficult for me to sit through Cold Pursuit and enjoy, Liam Neeson's work, kind of knowing, all of this stuff in context. But, I am judging it objectively. I think that my opinion on the film is what it is. I don't think it would have been changed at all if none of this had happened.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion of the film is my opinion of the film. This whole controversy didn't paint it in any way, I'd say. But I'm ultimately glad we talked about it. I think that was a good discussion.
Yeah, just wanted to mention it, because obviously it's out there, and I'm sure a lot of you listening have opinions on it that range all over the place. So depending on where you're at with all of this, that might affect your experience with Cold Pursuit if you do decide to see it. Now, of all the films that we're talking about this week, I do want to talk about my favorite one, which is really the only film I've seen this week, like new film, that I genuinely really enjoyed. So this is called High Flying Bird. This is a new film on Netflix. It's streaming right now from Steven Soderbergh, who's of course known for the Ocean's 11 series, and more recently Logan Lucky, which I enjoyed quite a bit, and Unsane, which I never saw Unsane, Claire Foy, but I think, Will, you liked it fine, right?
I liked it more than fine. Yeah, that was a good film.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about it a little more once you dive more into High Flying Bird.
Nice. Great. Yeah, you started High Flying Bird. You haven't finished it yet, so I'm obviously not going to give anything away. But this new film premiered at Sundance recently, and like what men want, it's all about the cutthroat world of sports agencies, specifically with NBA players who are dealing with a lockout. Basically, the owners are refusing to pay the players more, and they're trapped in a stalemate where they're not getting their money. And our lead here is Andre Holland. You may recognize him from Moonlight, Selma, and Wrinkle in Time. He suggested the story to the writer of Moonlight, Terrell Alvin McCraney, and he was in a lot of other things. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this is their second time working together, Steven Soderbergh and Andre Holland.
Andre Holland, yeah.
Yeah, because they also did The Knick together, and he's fantastic on The Knick.
He's done a lot of sports things, like 42. And,
Well, I was saying the Knick is the show they did together. It doesn't have anything to do with sports, but this is their second collaboration.
There's a common theme, in his filmography.
Sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Holland plays a sports agent named Ray who concocts a plan to kind of stop this lockout and maybe disrupt some of the abusive power structures going on with the NBA. This is a small but packed ensemble, which includes Zazie Beetz as Ray's assistant. I think we last saw her in Deadpool 2. She's also in Wounds, which I was supposed to see but didn't see at Sundance. Melvin Gregg is in this. He plays Eric, one of Ray's most important NBA clients, who's caught in this lockout. Bill Duke from Mandy, of course, from last year. Gerald Prescott, Zachary Quinto, Sonia Sohn, Kyle MacLachlan. It's a wonderful cast, made more wonderful by how this film is mostly just these characters talking to each other, scene to scene, in some strangely filmed locations around New York. We do have a clip. This is from High Flying Bird.
The NBA wanted control of a game that we played better. They invented a game on top of a game.
I can see a whole infrastructure that put the control back in the hands of those behind the ball.
What you gonna do?
But I'm about to pull up a chair.
My God ain't right.
We're at the height of the information era. We need a story.
What are you doing, man? This is my career.
You have a chance, sir, to do what has never been done before.
All right, that is from High Flying Bird. Again, it's now streaming on Netflix. This was shot with an iPhone 8 using a wide-angle lens. Full disclosure, I do work for Apple. And you can tell Soderbergh is going for a strictly indie feel where you wonder at times if the bad lighting is on purpose, if it's one of his bag of tricks he likes to employ in all of his films. He likes to push the envelope when it comes to the rules of filmmaking. And I'm mostly a fan of Soderbergh's bold experimentations. I think it does work here because the story itself is up to snuff. It's smart, it's entertaining, the characters are well written. Everything here works and is polished and refined except for maybe the camera work. And I still can't decide if that's a bad thing. I wish I could have seen this in a theater because you get the sense Soderbergh is now making films he knows you're going to see on a smartphone or a tablet or even a TV. And if you can tell a story using that method, if it plays into the story, I'm all for it, despite my misgivings, as I know you share, Will Ashton, about the theatrical experience getting more and more diminished. And you can actually make an argument that High Flying Bird is itself a commentary on the old systems, in their case, the NBA and its rules getting upended by a new generation. You can sort of tie that into how this is a Netflix movie that is, everyone can watch it right now, and you're not watching it in a big theater. And that's not to say Soderbergh is anti-movie theaters, but he is somebody who likes to film on phones, and he's a little bit more flexible, I guess you can say, with how he films.
Yeah, he's a very pragmatic guy as far as how he makes movies and how he approaches films. He's like sort of like a left brain guy in a right brain field in some ways, which is why I think that's why he's like great for movies like Oceans and this one in particular, I think too, because like he just has like the nice mix. I will say though, with the iPhone thing, I think it really worked for Unsane because it gave the film, well, for one, the film focuses a lot on phones in general and just kind of the culture we live in with cell phones all the time, but also like because it was in a sane asylum or like asylum of some sort, they it feels like kind of sneaked in, and like how like the odd angles kind of feel like you're kind of like watching something you're not really supposed to see. And I thought that really worked well with how the iPhone angle, and also just because like the griminess of it kind of like added to its favor as well. But from what I've seen so far of High Flying Bird, I don't think I'm quite a fan of the iPhone cinematography so far. Like you're saying, like the scene with where they're having like a meeting with Zachary, or what's his name?
Zachary Quinn,
Yeah, like that scene, like it looks extremely underlit, and like I feel like you could argue, like you don't typically see that type of conversation as well, so maybe the cell phone thing adds to it. But to me, so far, I'm not quite digging at angle, but I do think everything else is really working for me so far.
Yeah, I'm kind of split with it. There are moments where, like you, I'm like, wow, Soderbergh knows how to light a scene. So what is he trying to say here? And maybe he's trying to say something. You can definitely say, sure, he's trying to do something with this film style, but that doesn't mean it's working. I do think it's interesting because you mentioned Unsane, and the way that it works in that asylum is that, well, this film actually has an element to it. You haven't gotten to it yet, where there is not a plot, but there's sort of a thing that goes on here that speaks to that, the idea of like people secretly recording things. And so there's some connective tissue between, filming events as they happen, being more spontaneous, having sort of like you're recording something that you shouldn't be recording. It's there. I'm not saying that it all gels super well. I think the story in this movie works, in spite of all of the filmmaking. I just can't really decide if it adds anything, but I won't say it necessarily subtracts all the time.
Yeah.
And I think you could debate it though.
Yeah, I guess for me though, I do think he's using that to like ultimately kind of like show that you can make big movies like this on your phone.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's supposed to be encouraging, but at the same time, it does feel kind of like you're an Academy Award winning filmmaker. You don't have to film. This is not like Tangerine, where like that movie would not be made if it weren't for cell phones. Right. Like I don't think they had enough money to make it without using cell phones. So like,
and I think Sean Baker has proven that you can do that without it looking bad.
Right, and Sean Baker, ironically, he's like a big champion of film, like all of his other stuff now. Like he's like kind of gone against that. Like he's like making more traditional like looking films now, which is kind of interesting. But like including the Florida Project, which was shot on 35 millimeter. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of of two minds, and I won't rush to judgment for this film because I still need to finish it. But
right.
He wants to do it, I guess, for the future, and I don't know if The Laundromat, his new film, is also shot on iPhone. I'm guessing it is because he said that he wants to just shoot on iPhones for the future, but I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to see.
Yeah. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, yeah, I basically said it. I think this movie works because Andre Holland is just fantastic here. I think that his delivery is so in sync with the screenplay. He worked closely with Tara Love and McCraney, who wrote Moonlight, as I mentioned before, and you can just really tell that both of these films are from the same writer, and the way that they tackle themes of modern life as a black athlete, the expectations, the unspoken power dynamics. This is a slick film with a lot to say, and almost all of it is worth saying, in my opinion. I hope a lot of people check this one out. I understand that, I want people to go to the theater just as much as you do, but if Netflix is going to come out with things, I think this is a great one to see in your living room if you have the means. I don't think it's in select theaters. at the moment.
No.
I don't think I think it was just Sundance, but
I'll just say it didn't get an MPAA rating, so it's not playing in theaters.
Well, I mean, I guess it's PG-13. There's nothing much.
Well, no, it's TVMA, so it's R.
Was it really? Because I guess the language would be the only thing that you could say would put it over. Yeah, but that is High Flying Bird. I definitely recommend it. And Will, I hope you finish it soon so we can talk more about it.
Definitely.
Yeah, I give it a B+. I think it's pretty great.
Cool. Yeah, I'm definitely planning to finish it later today. I'm a big fan of Soderbergh, so I'm digging it so far, and I think I'm going to like it all the way through.
All right. Well, Will, you did see something that has been on my radar. I wrote about this in one of my preview columns, but I still haven't had a chance to see it. It isn't playing anywhere around here, but Piercing, which is a new horror film with some actors that I like. Yeah, maybe a more psychological thriller, that kind of thing.
Like a BDSM dark comedy is like what it is.
Okay. So what is this film, Ashton? You've intrigued me.
Yeah, like you said, it's the second film from Nicholas Pence or Peace, P-E-S-C-E. I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that last name, or Pice.
I thought it was Pesh, but yeah, maybe
Pesh. Probably you're probably right. Yeah, his first film was The Eyes of My Mother, which, if you are a queasy individual, I would say maybe hold off. But if you like really well shot, but very upsetting and disturbing black and white art house, with a quotation, art house films.
He also did Grudge, right?
Grudge?
Yeah, he's going to do. He's doing the new Grudge.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Yeah, because like I think he said like Eyes of My Mother was like the first time he was on a set. Like when he was directing that movie, he's like never been on a set before.
Yeah, it was his first. Well, it was the first film he wrote and the first film he directed. So
right, or something like that.
And I think he edited it.
Yeah, he did. So, yeah, Piercing is his follow-up where he kind of delves more into, like I said, the like kind of dark comedy angle of it. It's based on a book. I don't know if I'll be able to pronounce the author's last name. Raiku Maikarami.
Best effort.
Sure. Sorry about that. But anyway, so the movie is centered around Christopher Abbott, who I'm a big fan of. I think he's honestly one of the very best young working actors. He kind of plays this high-class businessman who has, I guess we'll say, a fetish for killing young women. And he is going on a business trip away from his wife and young daughter to basically just kill a random prostitute. And that prostitute is played by Maya Wasikowska. And
it's Maya Wasikowska.
Maya Wasikowska. Sorry, I'm just butchering all their names.
It's okay.
Why not? I'm on a roll. But anyway, yeah. So as he's getting ready to do this, he kind of learns, as I guess John, you discovered in a clip, that's
right. We're not playing this clip because it's spoilery, and I'm very surprised it exists. But yeah,
right. Yeah, I was gonna say that ultimately he basically met his match, and I liken the film to basically being like a nastier, gorier, more BDSM centric version of American Psycho, or Phantom Thread by way of American Psycho, and like maybe with the touch of 50 Shades of Grey in there. It's a movie I would not recommend to everybody, just because I think this is one of those movies where like I think you either kind of dig it or you don't. Like I don't blame anybody for not being in this movie's wavelength, just because I think it's intentionally pretty off-putting. I mean, the synopsis itself is pretty bleak, and I think the movie itself kind of prides itself on twists and turns that are going to probably alienate some people more than warm people. But I would say the performances are very strong. I think this is another great showcase for Maya. You can pronounce her last name
however you want. Yeah.
I think she's honestly really great, and I think this is kind of more in line with was it Stoker, the movie she did with Nicole Kidman?
Yeah, that one from like what 5-6 years ago, the Parks and Rec one.
Yeah, it's kind of in that vein. So yeah, I would say, I mean, there's a lot here to like. I think the cinematography is gorgeous. I think it makes great use of miniatures. Like all the exposition shots are like these little miniature sets that
like game
look
night.
Really cool. Sorta. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it involves a lot of games too. but I would say not the same games. Yeah, I mean, there's also the art direction is really on point because it's kind of playing a nod to Gallo movies, or I think that's how you pronounce it. Like, there's a lot of score elements taken from Dario Argentino movies, so the score is also really on point. So, yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a movie I like more aesthetically than in terms of content. Though I will say, I mean, the dark comedy in here, once again, I think I didn't love it all, but I think when it works, it really does work. And yeah, I would say it's not a movie similar to Eyes of the Mother that I'm going to rewatch anytime soon, but I think I liked it. And I'll give it like a tentative B-.
All right. Yeah, the cast is interesting. You know, you have Christopher Abbott, who I think he, you know, like last week, he was first on my radar with Girls. And, you know, he's, let's see, so he was in First Man last year, kind of a minor role, but I think, you know, It Comes at Night, he was in that, right? And
yeah, he was great in that.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of good films. He was in a bunch of stuff last year, like Vox Lux, and I think he was
James White.
James White is like his centerpiece, right? The Josh Mann film.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, so yeah, I haven't seen it. I heard it is pretty good. So yeah, so
great.
This one, I don't think this is my kind of film, you know, as much as I do like the cast. But yeah, you've definitely made me a little bit more interested than I was. I was definitely like curiously, like cautiously interested. But yeah, it sounds like something worth renting or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, if you were somebody who's like, Phantom Thread isn't kinky enough, then I guess this is for you.
Who is that person?
I don't know. I don't know if I want to meet them either, but I mean, this movie, I guess, is tailor-made for them.
All right, we just have one last review. I'm so glad, Will, that you're finally able to talk about this one. I've been wanting to see it for a while now, and that is Stan and Ollie. Real quick, I will say, because if we're on the subject of 2018 films that we haven't had it, that we're just now catching up on, I did see A Fathers and Sons, the documentary that was nominated, and I'm about to see Hale County. I forget the rest of the title, but
Hale County, This Country, This Evening.
Yeah, that's something like that. Yeah, but yeah, I saw A Fathers and Sons. It's a documentary about Syrian jihadists, and you see like their lives. This guy who named his kids after the perpetrators of the 9/11 attacks, and it is a haunting movie that fully disturbed me to my core.
Wow.
It is. I can see why it was nominated for Best Documentary. Not a ringing endorsement, I guess, but it is a must watch in the terms of if you live in America and you kind of live in a bubble of what's going on in other countries. And if you've always just been curious, like why there is why the problems exist that we have, and you get into the mindset of people who are very different from us and what they've gone through, what they've experienced, and how they're being raised. That's what this movie is about. It's not a enjoyable film to watch in the slightest, but it is a very informative educational film. It's called A Fathers and Sons. I really credit to the filmmaker. I forget his last name, but it's Talal something, who lived, with these people for about a year to document what their daily lives in Syria. And it's a haunting film for sure. So that's called A Fathers and Sons. I streamed it on demand, so you can do that right now as well if you're interested. But Will, you saw something that's a bit more lighthearted than that. Called
Sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah. One of John C. Reilly's dozens of performances, it seems, in 2018. But some
the
would
second
call it,
movie they did with Steve Coogan in 2018.
Yeah, that's right. Now, a lot of people have said Sisters Brothers is his best film he did last year. This one's called Stan and Ollie. Now, you have not seen Sister Brothers, right?
No, I did. I like that one.
Oh, you did see it? Okay. I want to hear your opinion.
It was in my honorable mentions for the 2018 best of episodes.
There were so many, Will. I get them all mixed up. But okay, Stan and Ollie, how did you like this one, and what is it about?
Yeah, so as the title might suggest, it's basically a biopic of Laurel and Hardy. They are a famous comedy troupe from back in the olden days. But the film isn't so much like a full life retrospective, so much as it's like kind of a tail end piece where they explore them on the outs, where they have had their better years behind them essentially. And John C. Reilly, he plays I think he plays Hardy, right? That's Oliver Hardy, and his health is basically failing, and they're going on what will become their last comedy tour. to try to promote a movie that ultimately will not be made. And it's a movie that it's very bittersweet in its approach. I think it's a movie that's kind of made for people who are very nostalgic for Laurel and Hardy. And I can't say I'm in that boat just because I'm not really.
How many of those people are there? I guess I would ask.
There's probably enough of an audience to make a film, but I don't know. Like I said,
we should say, this film has made 16 million at the box office, so it's definitely found an audience.
Yeah. I didn't even realize it was that high. But I didn't grow up with them, and I don't have a long history with them, so I don't think I had the same nostalgia that other people have while watching this movie, and that's fine. It doesn't need to be made tailor-made for me, but as a film, I don't think it really is that substantive. I think there's some good stuff in here, and I think that the approach is probably wise. I think it's better to kind of narrow the approach into the story as opposed to doing a full story of their life and careers. But the performances themselves from John C. Reilly and Steve Coogan, I think John C. Reilly's getting a little more appreciation because he's wearing a fat suit, and he's he's more of a transformative performance. And I think that is it's good, but I think I was a little more taken by Steve Coogan just because I think I was able to adapt into his performance, and I think I was able to see it more in line with what the film's trying to do as opposed to John C. Reilly, where I never really divorced myself from seeing as a performance. He ultimately just seems like he's doing an act, which is fine. I just don't think it quite I didn't feel like it was a transformation in the same way that other people have. But as a film, it's charming, it's cute, it means well, and I think the ending actually hit me pretty hard. But I will say that as a film, it's probably best seen as a Saturday matinee with your grandma, where she'll say it's very nice, and you'll kind of just go about your day, and you don't think much of it afterwards. In that respect, it is what it is. It's charming enough, and I think it does its job, but I don't think I am going to revisit it anytime soon. And it also just made me think as fine as these performances are, I could just be watching Laurel and Hardy because, they're just kind of going out of their way to recreate something that already just exists and has been well documented through the art of film. So, I've
heard the best part of this film is when it ends with a 20-minute, live aid performance from 1984. So.
Oh yeah, that was surprising, but I will say, the dedication of the performances was impeccable.
I have to say, Will, I've been flying a lot lately, and Bohemian Rhapsody has been on every in-flight movie. Just wanted to put that out there. It's kind of excessive, but yeah, just an aside.
So wait, you've seen it again?
No, I haven't watched it, but every time I've flown, I've been in those planes where they have the TVs on the back of the seats.
Oh, I see.
And so I've seen just dozens and dozens of people watching Bohemian Rhapsody on their flights, while I'm watching this A Fathers and Sons documentary where I'm just weeping in my seat, and I don't even know why at this point. So.
Yeah. I've never been in an airplane, so I don't quite know how those work, but I have enough of an idea.
Is that true?
Yeah, I've never been in an airplane.
You've never flown?
No.
Well, Ashton, I learned something new about you every day.
Yeah, I guess so. But yeah, so wrapping it up with Stan Ollie. I gave it a B-, a kind of lukewarm B-, I guess. It's fine. I think it's good as a rental, and if you really like Laurel and Hardy, I would definitely recommend it. But it's by no means a must-see.
Yeah, this is definitely must see, must grade C, right? I can definitely tell this is one of those films. It has it's hard to make that joke / pun, audibly. But I was gonna say it does have a high Rotten Tomato score, 92%. But this feels like one of those films where it seems like everyone's liking it, right? It doesn't have the highest ratings, but everyone's sort of saying, this is a good movie. They're giving it a pass.
Basically, yeah, I think it's a lot of people kind of going into it the way I am. It's not really bad. It feels kind of mean to give it a negative grade because it's not poorly made. It is well made and the performances are good. It's just that it just feels kind of, if not unnecessary, just kind of whatever. It's just kind of a ho hum. You did it, but so what? Accomplishment. So yeah.
All right, so let's finish out this episode of Cinemaholics. Next week, a lot of films coming out. We're going to be talking about Alita Battle Angel and Happy Death Day to You. And we might also be discussing briefly Fighting with My Family, or we might be doing a bonus episode of that because, Will, you don't see it until after it hits select theaters. So we may be doing something kind of special for that film, but I know our listeners, thanks a lot, Will. But I think our listeners are probably most excited for Happy Death Day to You, at least listeners who've been around for a while. That is definitely a sequel to a film with a lot of baggage on this show. If you're curious all about that, just listen to our Happy Death Day episode from, that was that the same week we reviewed The Foreigner and The Florida Project?
Probably. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I'm sharpening my claws now for next week's episode.
Can't wait. Yeah, we'll find plenty to agree on, at least when it comes to Jessica Roth, I think. But yeah, that's all happening next week. But for now, if you love our show and you want it to continue, please consider leaving us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever your podcast central is. You can hang out with us anytime on Facebook and Twitter, or email us, cinemaholics.podcast@gmail.com. All those links are in the show notes. And you can also hang out with us on our website, cinemaholics.net. And that'll do it for us this week. From the Internet, California, I am John Agroni.
And from the Internet, Pennsylvania, I'm Will Ashton.
See you next time.